I know. I am too old to be getting this worked up over a Netflix remake of a cartoon that came out when I was 11. But this is not just any
It was an amazing cartoon. It had really good character development.
Cartoon. It's not like they're rebooting Jimmy Neutron and I'm pissed off about it. Avatar is a nearly perfect series. It's one I enjoyed a lot when I saw it as a kid, but rediscovering it as an adult actually blew my mind. It's a show that moved me to tears multiple times. It's something that the creators clearly put so much thought and care into getting every detail right, from the world building to the music. Now, for a long time, I thought it would be impossible to translate this world into live action, partly because of how intricate and beautiful the animation is, and partly because the last time they tried to do it, it was a fucking disaster.
Yeah, I remember this came out in movie theaters. When did it come out? Like 2014? Chad, do you remember when this came out? Yeah, 2015? Yeah. Dude, they were 2010! Oh my god, dude. 22, dude, the movie sucked. The casting was awful. I remember the CGI was just ass.
I've seen way too many people say in regards to the Netflix adaptation, hey.
And it was made by M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah, it was so bad.
At least it's better than the movie. Yeah, I would hope it's better than one of the worst films ever made. You don't get points for that. Because of how goofy and awkward this movie looked, I assumed it just couldn't be done. That this world was simply unadaptable to live action. And in a lot of ways, Netflix proved me wrong. This show looks probably as good as a live action Avatar could. I mean, nothing will ever truly compare to vibrant and fluid 2D animation, but the VFX team that worked on this did a really good job of making something that very easily could have looked dumb as shit look pretty realistic. Except for the airbending. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, a lot of the scenes are directed a little jarringly, and it's way too dark sometimes, but with what they were
Oh, I hate that, man. I hate it when movies are too dark. Do you guys remember Game of Thrones? The final battle? I remember watching it, and it was pirated because it was so low quality, and the battle, you couldn't tell what was going on, and they were like, yeah, man, that's so cool, bro. Oh my god, you can see a damn thing.
With bringing to life here, I think they deserve a lot of credit. But it's funny to me that Netflix nailed the part that I thought couldn't be done well and messed up all of the stuff that should have been a slam dunk.
The casting is not it.
Let's start with the pilot, because I started writing this video 10 minutes into the first episode. The pilot condenses the first 3 episodes of the animated series into one premiere, which on paper works really well. The end of episode 3 really is where the prologue ends. We've established the world, we've introduced the characters and a little bit of their backstories, and they're literally flying away from their past as they venture forth onto their journey. And while the very beginning of the show doesn't quite reach the heights that it eventually will, I think this is all paced really well and does a good job of doling out enough information to explain what's going on while still having the restraint to hold on to some things that can be revealed when the time is right. We open on
I also think the most beautiful part about Avatar is that it caters to an adult and a kid audience. It's not dumb enough, but like it's basic enough for a child to understand, at least at like the age of 10 to 12, to be easy to follow, but an adult watching it. So my brother's like older than me, right? And we watched this together and he found it enjoyable and didn't think it was like a stupid cartoon or something. He was like, yeah, this is actually pretty good. There's like fight scenes, the story's not boring, it's a little goofy, it has like some childish jokes that like a kid can understand. It's really like for all ages, honestly.
2 of the 3 main characters, Sokka and Katara. We learn that they're siblings who live in the Southern Water Tribe. Katara is a waterbender, Sokka is not. He belittles her ability, they bicker for a bit, it escalates, and then Katara waterbends so hard that a 12-year-old bald kid falls out of an iceberg. Wait, that's not just any bald kid, that's the Avatar. No one's seen him in 100 years, what the hell? No time to stop and explain everything though, because they have inadvertently alerted a nearby Fire Nation ship of their presence. This is Prince Zuko and his uncle Iroh. They've been banned banished from their home and sent on a now 3-year quest to find the Avatar, a quest that may just be about to end. Some chaos ensues, a fight breaks out, but ultimately with the help of his new friends, Aang is able to escape Zuko, and the three of them fly into the sunset. Now that brings us to episode 3, and there is still a crucial piece of information that the showrunners have not yet revealed to Aang because they're waiting until the right moment. The gang heads to the air temple that Aang grew up in, a place where Sokka and Katara know is probably filled with dead airbenders, but they don't have the heart to break it to him. He's so cheerful and excited to just show them where he used to play with his friends. How do we tell this kid that everyone he knew and loved was murdered by the Fire Nation? Instead, they try to cheer him up and keep him distracted. We see a flashback of Aang's former life. He's talking to his friend and mentor Gyatso, someone who we can tell he clearly cared a lot about. Aang talks about how overwhelmed he is at the thought of being the Avatar, and Gyatso assures him that everything will be alright. We cut back.
And again, this is insane character development for a kids show in the first 3 episodes, bro. Gyatso, Gyat! No, like, for me, when I was a kid and I watched it, it was surprisingly deep. You don't really expect this from like a kids show from Nickelodeon at all. And it's broken up into books, and those books, the chapters, right? The seasons or whatever, they all had like different important things they had to learn, and you can kind of like parallel that. It was so good.
They keep exploring for a bit. They find Momo, a little pet to go with their big pet. Things are going great until... Oh, shit.
Oh, God.
Firebenders? They were here? Gyatso.
Oh,
Yeah.
man. Come on, Aang. Everything will be alright. Let's get out of here.
Oh, he's pissed. Yep.
This is a really important scene for the beginning of a Nickelodeon show that up until this point has been pretty lighthearted. Seeing your main character, who's just a kid, find out about the death of his entire people and then freak out and have to be calmed down by his friends, it's a really powerful moment that can only happen because the writers held on to this reveal until the time was right to reveal it. So now let's talk about how Netflix handled the pilot. Instead of
I saw the pilot when it came out. Oh, when Netflix Airbender release date. When did this come out again? It came out. I thought it came out last year, but it was this year. Yeah, it was. I'm just gonna let him cook, I guess.
Starting the show on our main characters, we open on an epic chase. This is streaming, baby. We gotta put a fight scene within the first 10 seconds or people are gonna turn it off and go watch Love is Blind. If you don't brutally murder someone right now, I'm taking my ass to Freevee. But you know what? I'm fine with this cold open. I understand you're just trying to grab people's attention, and a quick little action sequence that shows how ruthless the Fire Nation can be is not the worst way to do it. But it should have ended here. You say this line.
This isn't about the Airbenders. This is about one who lives among them.
But the Avatar is yet to be revealed.
Which is why we have to kill them all.
And then we cut to present day to the 3 main characters, similar to how the cartoon did.
But you're exposing what the writers in the original... that's so dumb. Again, that just ruins the whole, like, emotional moment. Like, you exposed the... It's the inverse. They flipped it.
I think that would have been a really effective opening because if you've never seen the show and you just watch the Fire Lord say, "We gotta kill all the Airbenders,"
but you also didn't know about the show before in the cartoon. It's so backwards. I hate it when people try to make everything so fucking obvious. Like the fact that there's kids that watch these shows are 12, 14. You don't need to, like, expose everything to the audience. Let them figure it out. Whoa, no way. Aang is upset that, like, all his friends and family died. Did you? Oh, my God. You don't have to. Ugh. I just... this gets me so upset.
And then you cut 100 years into the future and you see an airbender that survived, you'd probably be like, how did that happen?
Yep.
I'm gonna stick around to find out. Instead, we come back from the title sequence and we're still in the past on the day of the aforementioned invasion. I guess we're just gonna do the whole show chronologically, lest anyone be confused.
But you don't need to do that they had flashbacks in the cartoon. You could have just done it like kind of like almost not an adaptation, like not a word for word. How do I say it? Like a transcription, but they chose not to because they're too arrogant.
Meet Aang and Gyatso and see them stand and talk for a while, and then we get to watch some people sit and talk for a while, and we cut back to Aang and Gyatso, and they do more standing and more talking, and then Aang flies away, and a whole bunch of murder happens. Oh my god, so much murder. I'm talking several uninterrupted minutes of murder, because remember, this is a show for grown-ups. Cartoons are for babies. We got a bunch of dead bodies in this one. What's crazy to me about this entire sequence is that while they're so insistent on showing something that I honestly think had more emotional impact to just see the aftermath of, they make no attempt to show us any aspects of Aang's personality. I mean, don't get me wrong, the writers take the time to explain Aang's personality to us. He and Gyatso tell us all about him.
I know who I am. I like to play airball and eat banana cakes and goof off with...
Oh, the script writing, man. I've never once in my life met and talked to someone that said the words, hey, I know who I am. I like football and computer video games. Wow.
my friends. That's who I am.
I feel bad for this kid because he seems like a very good actor, but the writers keep giving him lines that make it sound like he's about to burst into song.
Monks don't even trust me to feed the baby bison, and I'm supposed to save the world?
Why can't I just be a kid? But this isn't even the worst example of tell, don't show.
Modern day Disney writing. Dude, Drew Gooden is so funny, man. It's so true.
That they do in this episode. Remember I told you about how Aang finds out that all the airbenders are dead, how he stumbles upon the corpse of his former best friend, surrounded by all of the firebenders it took to take him down? Here's how they do it in this show.
Most of them had just arrived for the Great Comet Festival.
The Great Comet Festival. The last time that the Great Comet was seen in the sky was 100 years ago.
Someone just tells him about it.
Everyone in the village knows this story.
They inverse it again. Chat my hands.
But you
Exposition
don't know that airbenders haven't been seen in generations, and that the Southern Air Temple was the first to fall because you've been trapped in that ice this whole time.
Gran reads out loud the entire opening theme for like 2 straight minutes while he has to just sit there and give reaction faces before
moment, man.
Running out of the room crying. And then he's sad for like 10 seconds and then everything is fine. No time to mope, buddy. You gotta do another walk and talk. This is infuriatingly bad writing. You took one of Aang's most impactful
he didn't even get angry and destroy the place.
Moments from the beginning of the show and turned it into someone else's monologue. It's so weird to me when shows are clearly in a rush to establish as much information as possible. I guess because they think people will get confused and turn it off if they don't have their hand held through every interaction. But it feels counterintuitive. I think what gets people to continue watching something is mystery. You don't need to answer every question I have within seconds of me having it. You can reveal information in small doses and slowly add to it piece by piece.
I love when games and shows do that. I really do. That's why I think the Game of Thrones, I know I go back to it, but Game of Thrones, the adaptation seasons 1 through 5 and maybe 6 was actually really good. Even if you are not engaged in Game of Thrones, you don't know the characters and you don't know what the hell they're talking about, you're still engaged enough because you understand what the substance of or the vibe of the characters are without even actually knowing them. Because in a book, you're like, you also have their thoughts, you have their feelings, you're reading what the expression on their face is, which you might miss in like a visual perspective. But like, This is just such ass writing, man. I hate it. I hate it when they just like throw it at you.
That's what's going to compel me to keep watching something, not paragraphs of expository dialogue whenever you feel like you've got some lore blanks to fill. It's also weird to me that they still try to recreate the air temple moment in this episode, even though it's not new information for Aang. He goes and sees dead Gyatso, who was evidently much easier to kill this time around, and still goes bananas and still has to be calmed down, but it doesn't really make sense because he already knows about this.
All my friends, they're all gone.
What is he doing? Wait, they didn't even do it before they're all dead. She's like, my friends are all dead. I'm gonna get really mad. What the fuck? You find your mom in a car wreck and then you're like, ah shit, she's dead. And then, like, you see her body again, and then you're like, now I'm really mad.
It actually feels like kind of an overreaction, considering he barely gave a shit about it earlier. Also in the original, Katara is the one to calm Aang down while he's in this state. She tells him that she knows what it's like to lose someone you love, but the world needs him, and they're here to help no matter what. It's a great moment for the three of them because it gives closure to Aang's past while bridging the gap into this present journey they're about to go on. In this version, Katara just watches while we see a bunch of flashbacks from earlier in the episode, in case you were looking at your phone during that part.
Oh, people love to watch Netflix on their freaking phone. It's so great.
You are my friend.
I really don't understand the obsession with Gyatso in this version. He
his name
is
is
an
Gyat!
important character, but more so as a memory for Aang, like a symbol of what he lost. He's not that relevant to the present day journey they're about to go on. What matters the most is their relationship. Their friendship is the foundation that this entire series is built on. So I think you're doing a huge disservice to that by taking interactions away from Katara and Sokka so you can give them to a guy who died 100 years ago. They do this
and then he's not even a reoccurring character. They removed the bond that Katara and Aang had all for this guy that, no offense, he's not really relevant. Like, it's a side character.
Multiple times in the show,
Zaka.
they keep bringing Gyatso back instead of giving that valuable screen time to the more important characters. They even do this in the opening title scroll in the pilot episode. In the original, Katara is the one who does this voiceover, which kind of establishes the show as being from her point of view. And the very iconic lines she says at the end,
But I believe Aang can save the world.
actually tell us something about her. They tell us that she's optimistic and believes in her friends no matter what. So they actually managed to add characterization into a sequence that is at its core exposition. It's a very efficient use of dialogue. In the remake, they take this away from Katara so they can, again, give it to a character who died 100 years ago. And that's not even mentioning the fact that everything that's said in this version of the title sequence—
They gave it to the other Avatar? Bro, like, what are we doing, man? They hate Katara? Yeah, they hate women. Like, what?
gets repeated multiple times throughout the episode. It's a very inefficient use of dialogue.
The Avatar, the one person with the ability to master all four elements. The Avatar, the next master of all four elements.
Only the Avatar, the one person
The Avatar.
who can master all four elements.
Only the Avatar, master of all four elements. But when the world needed him most,
Oh my
he vanished.
When the world needed the Avatar the most, he vanished.
Episode 1 shouldn't
He vanished.
feel as rushed at the end as it does. It's roughly the same runtime as the 3 episodes it's adapting. So it's not that they didn't have the time to tell the story, it's that they
Oh my god, it's actually the same runtime. Someone earlier said, yeah, of course it's shitty writing because they had to condense it. It's like, they could have tried. They could have tried, man.
misused the time they had. They add in all this stuff that probably would have been better if it was just kept a mystery. They waste so much time repeating the same information just from different sources, and they replace interesting character development moments with vague mumbo jumbo.
Bending is about energy and balance. By feeling the energy around you, you can find balance. By finding balance, you can feel the energy.
Aang,
the freak asked, by the way. Chat, streaming is about balance. If you feel balance, you can stream!
What the fuck are you talking about? Remember, energy is balance, which is energy, which is balance. Whoa, thanks, Aang. I'm water bending now. And I'm internet bending. Ooh. Sorry about that. This portion of the video is sponsored by Opera, the faster, safer, and smarter way to browse the web. If you've ever wondered why it takes me so long to make videos, it's because most of my job is writing. And while I'm writing, I like to have 97 different tabs open for every thought that pops.
Here, she should use Opera, I guess.
Pops into my head. A really cool thing I can do on Opera is sort my tabs into islands. So when I want to shift gears away from my 25-minute Amazon journey and back into working, I can just click one button, hide all of that, and now I'm not thinking about it anymore. It's a super helpful tool for visually organizing my time online. Opera has a free ad blocker built into the browser that you can toggle on and off with one click, which is great for those websites that yell at you when you have one and you need to quickly pretend that you don't. There's a built-in music player on the sidebar that works with all the big streaming services like Spotify and Apple Music. And it's great for when I'm working on my laptop and don't have a second monitor. I don't need to open a separate window just to change a song. You can also use a sidebar to go on Messenger apps or scroll through social media. And I think it's really cool that when I'm watching a YouTube video, it'll automatically move it to the corner of the screen when I open up a new tab. If I'm not multitasking at all times, then what is even the point of having internet access? Upgrade the way you browse the web. Download Opera for free using my link in the description. Thank you to Opera for sponsoring today's video. Now, before I continue just getting mad about every single aspect of this show, I do want to answer a more general question of like, what should we expect out of an adaptation? Because it may sound like I'm trying to say that this should have been a one-to-one recreation of the original show, when that is not the case. You can and should be able to change things. Why even bother spending all this money to make something that looks worse if it's going to be exactly the same? But those changes need to enhance the story. They can't be at odds with the spirit of the show or fundamentally change a character. So that brings me to episode 2. In the months leading up to this show's release, I kept seeing aggregated quotes about it from cast members, from the creators, and every time I did, it made me
Algorithm their live-action Avatar Last Airbender series couldn't just appeal to kids, but must appeal to the people who are big fans of Game of Thrones. Oh my god, but the writing is so bad! You could even transcribe a fucking visual thing. So, let me just say, transcribing a book into a movie or like a visual thing is a lot more difficult than transcribing a cartoon into a real-life series. Like, what are we smoking, man? You had the golden ticket and you just decided to wipe your ass with the golden ticket instead of just leaving it alone. It's so crazy, man. Yeah, like, Avatar has mature themes. It doesn't have, like, boobies and sex, but, like, it's about, like, people dying. It's about war. There's, like, genocide. Like, what are we smoking?
A little bit less optimistic about what we were going to get. One of those quotes was how the creators of the show
I actually talked about this on stream months ago. Yeah, the Sokka sexism. Oh, okay, I'm gonna let him cook.
Very nobly got rid of the sexism that Sokka had a little bit of at the beginning of the cartoon. Because that,
even though he grows out of it. Chat. He's a kid that had a moment in the cartoon that led to him being like, oh, well, girls can't fight, and then he got proven wrong, and he was reformed. He had a character development. Why even like have... It's relatable. Like, why?
That was 2005, and we're a lot smarter now. Obviously, I don't need to tell you that there are tons of movies and TV shows from 20 years ago that absolutely have not aged well. But I think you're missing the...
There's also ones that would age well if people fucking gave it a chance.
point if you try to lump this show in with those. Sokka is an overconfident but misguided teenage boy who grew up isolated from the rest of the world, where he has been tasked with being the sole leader and protector of his entire village. As a result, he begins the show with a pretty dated sense of what men and women should be expected to do.
And he had an arrogance that some teenagers still have in real life because he's a fucking kid.
Constantly making belittling remarks to his sister. He meets the warriors on Kyoshi Island and is relieved to see that they're just girls. Here's the thing though, the show is not glorifying his behavior. In fact, they're very much doing the opposite. Because you know what happens right after he says these things? He is immediately proven wrong. He underestimates.
And this goes back to our earlier talking about how shutting down someone instead of like having them develop as a character is how people develop echo chambers. Just if you think it's wrong, just teach them out of it. He's a kid. He's not a 30-year-old man either.
Suki and the rest of the Kyoshi warriors, and they kick his ass. He's so embarrassed by this that he comes back with his tail between his legs and apologizes and begs to learn from them. It is meant to be a humiliating and humbling experience for him, one that also props up the women around him. It's vindicating for Katara, who's had to deal with this bullshit her whole life, and it establishes Suki as a badass. It's not unchecked. It's not something that the showrunners are celebrating. And
it's not shoved in your face either. It was literally like 1 or 2 episodes and then everybody's like, all right, we're chilling. It's so weird. Like, it was just like one thing.
Misogyny is immediately met with repercussions. Are we really at a point where we can't even show a character on TV doing something morally disagreeable? Can audiences truly not—
I'm surprised they didn't have fucking Zuko's arcs changed because he was like an upset kid and a villain and wanted to kill everyone essentially and capture the Avatar. Because that's character development. He switched sides.
Understand the difference between a real-life human being expressing a shitty belief and that belief being portrayed in a piece of fiction. And look, I'm not here to die on the hill that you gotta keep the misogyny in the show, man. It was so funny. Like, there's other ways for the writers to show Sokka having a flaw that Suki can use to get a leg up on him. So what do they do instead? She walks in on him taking a bath and just fucking stands there staring at him.
Isn't that a little bit fucking weird, especially because he's a teenager? I'd hope she's a teenager too. It's kind of weird, don't you think?
With googly eyes. And then in their training scene together, they have to stop every 10 seconds because of all the sexual tension.
Avoided. We've avoided a lot of things by living the way we do.
Jesus Christ. Do you see?
Oh. Oh, this writing is gonna make me hurl, chat. Help!
The point that I'm trying to make here, instead of Suki being this cool and confident intellectual superior to Sokka, who always has the upper hand on him and is always able to shut him down whenever he tries to pull some shit, they decided to just make her so horny she can't function.
It's like all VTubers, bro. Like, what the fuck? What is this?
Gotta say, it's a little ironic that in an attempt to remove sexism,
they make her like the epitome of a horny bimbo. Like, what? That's not female empowerment that they want.
From the show, they actually took a more sexist approach to designing her character. They stripped away everything that made her who she was, made her absolutely obsess over Sokka, who doesn't do anything to earn it, and then they have the nerve to act morally superior to the original writers. Also, does anyone in this village respect privacy? Shaking my dick.
What the hell?
goddamn head. On the topic of absolutely destroying strong female characters, let's talk about Katara. Her entire arc in the show is just, man, I'm not so good at bending. And then Aang is like, yeah, you are. And she's like, huh, you're right. I'm actually the best. She is not given any personality whatsoever. Her entire—
That's so cringe, because the whole point of Katara is that she sucked at waterbending initially, and she had to get over her emotional, like, because waterbending is so emotionally tied, and you have to be really calm. Like, what? What? Like, why? Yeah, it took a whole season. Like, she couldn't airbend. She was jealous and upset. This is... why?
Entire existence is tied to her waterbending
abilities,
Mary
Sue,
which
exactly.
is not what made her such a great character in the cartoon. Instead of showing how fiery and passionate Katara can be, and how her optimism sometimes backfires because the world they're living in is so beaten down, and how she can be a great leader and friend to everyone around her, not just because she's strong, but because she's empathetic and brings out the best in people. They just made her real.
And they show her flaws as well, because she, at one point, I'm pretty sure, gets really upset at Aang and Sokka for, like, doing something really bad, and they had to realize how much she means to them, and then they had to, like, win her back, obviously, apologize and stuff. Like, it's just so stupid. If you make a character that can't do anything wrong, it doesn't make a character compelling.
Good at fighting. And that's it.
You are a waterbender. That is who you have always been, and always will be.
And she doesn't even need any help, because she's so talented. Always has been, in fact.
I wasn't even really trying.
It's just not an interesting choice when compared to how the original...
Yeah, this is it for the adults who liked Avatar: The Last Airbender, clearly. Oh my god. I hate the girl bossification of characters, and, like, not even women, males too, that can do everything right off the rip. There's no struggle, there's no, oh, I fucked up, or, like, I made a mistake, I want to be relatable. It's like, what the hell, man?
Original show handled her growth. They had this great episode early on where Katara gets jealous of Aang because he's the Avatar and everything just comes so easily to him. But what this showed about her character is that she desperately wants to be good at waterbending, will go to great lengths to be able to do it, and has to work twice as hard as Aang. So when we get to the end of the season...
Yeah, and also Aang has his own struggles with the elements. Yeah, it's crazy. This is such bad writing.
And she does surpass him in skill, we know it's because she worked really hard to get there. And that is more admirable than her just being handed this power. I mean, literally handed. Gran just gives her this scroll that is
she reads this like, I get it. Even though the whole point of bending is about emotion and what is within. You can't, like lightning bending, you have to be very careful and know what you're doing, and firebending, there's like a bunch of different... Anyway, I'm getting like really off topic, but like it's just like there's so much more to bending than reading a fucking scroll.
In the original show, she went to great lengths to steal. For Katara, her main motivation in season 1 is to get to the Northern Water Tribe so she can find someone to teach her waterbending, something she's always wanted but has never had access to because she's always been the only waterbender in her tribe. And then they finally get to the North Pole, and I guess she doesn't actually need that, because instead of asking Paku to train them, she begs him to let her fight. First of all, why are you asking permission? He's not gonna stop you. Just go do it. What is he gonna follow you around and tie your hands behind your back because you're trying to fight the fire? Just go fucking do it. But the point they're trying to make is that she's so powerful, she doesn't even need someone to teach her. Okay, well then why doesn't she just go defeat the Fire Lord herself? She has this line at one point where she's like, "We need you, Aang. I need you." No, you don't. You don't seem...
Yeah, no, you don't. You're good enough. Like, you're such a girl boss. You can do everything.
To really need anyone. The fact that everything comes so easily to her makes it so there's no payoff at the end. It makes this line...
You found a master, haven't you?
You're looking at her.
Kinda dumb, actually. All you did was read one scroll that your grandma gave you, and now you're a waterbending master.
This is such a shallow understanding of, like, the universe itself. Like, don't get me wrong, I have seen it like quite a few times, maybe not recently, so it's kind of like, how do I say it? It's all coming back to me how the arcs worked, but it's like someone ran a Wikipedia page and was like, yes, so they have superpowers, and then like you can read a scroll and like they have specific movements. Like, no, it comes from within, you dipshit. Watch the show! The entire arc where Aang has to learn how to earthbend is extremely difficult for him because he's so light and he can't understand that you have to listen to the earth and like do all this fucking shit. Or Zuko, how he's so angry that it's too much for the firebending for him to control and he can't firebend anymore. It's like, bro. She'll spend an entire episode getting taught waterbending by Paco. Yeah, and it's all thrown out the window because she's just amazing to girl boss.
What a journey, huh? This story will be told for generations. They gave her zero depth in this show, and it's really frustrating. You may notice while watching this show that Netflix seems to have a fear of giving any of the main characters an unlikable trait. God forbid any of these children ever make a mistake or...
But then you also alienate people that want a flawed character. Everybody has flaws. Like, there's nothing wrong with, like, being arrogant and then learning not to be arrogant. As long as, like, there's, like, a purpose to it at the end. Even an arrogant villain has their place. Because they are the arrogant villain that needs to be defeated. Like, what?
Have a redemption arc. They need to start the show already perfect. That is such a boring way to write your characters. It's also a huge disservice to your actors by giving them nothing to work with. One of the foremost characteristics of Aang early on in the show is that he's still just a kid. He's a 12-year-old boy who has been given this overwhelming responsibility of saving the world. It's something that understandably scares the shit out of him, so much so that he runs away. That's how
he makes mistakes.
He ends up in the iceberg for 100 years. It's the inciting incident of the entire show. That guilt follows him, and it's a really important part of his growth. But Netflix seemed to be so concerned with having their main character make an incorrect decision that they changed the reason for him flying out into the middle of a storm to him just going for a stroll.
You're right. Just needs to go up where things always make more sense.
Why are we so scared, man?
I gotta go up where things make more sense.
And break it out into song.
Ain't so good for thinking. Don't worry, guys, it was just an accident. He wasn't avoiding responsibility because he's a child who wasn't ready for it yet. He was just getting some fresh air. In the middle of a lightning storm. Okay, great. So instead of him showing signs of immaturity, he's actually just an idiot. Another thing about Aang still being a kid is that he's not always focused on the task at hand. That's something he has to grow into. This is his very first line in the original show.
Will you go penguin sledding with me?
He's constantly getting distracted and wanting to go on side quests because he's a little boy. Of course, it's not like that the whole show, but it gives him a starting point, so by the end, you can see how much he's matured. Netflix Aang don't got a whimsical bone in his body. He is extremely serious and solely focused on getting from point A to point B.
And it's not even the actor's fault, man. The actor's actually pretty decent. It's just that he has to act like this because because they told him to.
He's not written like a child. He's already the season 3 version of Aang. Netflix, if you want your characters to be able to grow, they need to have a place to grow from. Yeah, he takes the time.
Wasn't there also like an episode where Aang did something over like his responsibilities and it like fucked over the group and everybody's messed up? Like, it's all coming back to me again. Like, I might have had to look it up, but it's the whole point of the character. They could have included one sequence where he fucked up instead of including all this crap and writing and reading and dialogue between characters or monologues or flashbacks instead.
time to deliver his little soliloquies about how much he yearns to goof. But those are just words. We never actually see him do those things. It also makes it so his whole interaction with Boomy makes no sense. Boomy's like, there's no time for fun, Aang. You've got to go save the world. It's like, yeah, he knows that. He's already very good at not having any fun. This is one of the worst written arcs in the entire show because
why even have the character if you're not going to show him, man?
Everything they say contradicts what they're doing. Boomy tells him to quit playing games and go do your job as the Avatar. Meanwhile, he's the one holding him hostage, giving him games to play. Aang wants to leave the entire time. Just let him go and he'll do the things you're asking him to. Aang's immaturity also lends really well to the narrative shift that happens in the first season, because for a long time he's like, yeah, I gotta save the world eventually, but first let's go here. And
what about Toph as well? Like, him and Toph had a relationship through being goofy together, and that's how they bonded, even though they were complete opposites. Like, it just completely ruins the entire show.
Bug around here for a little bit, and then we get to episode 8 and the former Avatar is like, no dude, you actually have to defeat the Fire Lord by the end of the summer, because this comet is going to come, and if you don't do it before that, he's going to be invincible.
Mastering the elements takes years of discipline and practice. But if the world is to survive, you must do it by summer's end.
And this was the serious shit. As soon as this happened, oh my god, you knew it was actually pivoting to being a lot more serious. 100%. Even though there's like a little bit of like goofiness and stuff, and it's still a cartoon. But like by summer, you're like, no way, is he gonna be able to do it?
Great shift in momentum that adds even more stakes to the equation. It puts a timer on everything. They kind of do that in this one. They give him a vision of the North Pole being attacked, but that doesn't do anything to address the overarching goal of having to learn and master all 3 of the elements. Something that, small note here, he doesn't do any of the entire season. They set that up as one of the main goals in the original first season, and we see a bunch of examples of Aang learning waterbending and before having it pay off in the finale. Aang doesn't waterbend once in this version. He's so behind, it's actually stressing me out.
It would have been wise to have focused on your training during your journey.
I swear to God, if they start season 2 and Aang is already very good at waterbending, implying that there was a bunch of progress that happened off screen, I'm gonna lose my mind. And don't try to tell me that I already have. This is me on a good day. As you watch more of the show, it
That's the whole point of being an Avatar, man.
Makes a lot of the additions more frustrating because everything has a cost. If you have to cut out character development moments so you have the space to show a bunch of airbenders getting set on fire, you might want to take a step back.
Oh, but they don't have character development because Aang is a stoic motherfucker who doesn't fuck around, and Sokka is just Sokka without the sexism. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously.
And reconsider your priorities. It starts to become a little obvious why the creators of the original show left this project almost 4 years ago over creative.
And this happened to The Witcher as well, chat. They deviated. What is with Netflix and touching everything and just like exploding it? They had such a good thing with The Witcher 2, and they just took a big fat shit over it to the point where the fucking main actor was like, all right, I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore.
Differences. According to them, they were promised that they would be given the job of guiding the show in the right direction, and they were lied to. Dude, I'm so tired of these
I love corpos.
Dumbass executives who make $2 million every second getting involved in things that they have no knowledge in. Why even hire the original creators of the show if you're just gonna ignore their input and act like you know their story better than they do? Why the concern over—
Because you're not catering to modern audiences. They don't want to see character development. They just want to consume and jerk off to Sokka and Kyoshi making out and stuff. That's why.
for making characters unlikable when that was never a problem to begin with. Everybody loved Katara and Sokka and Aang, even with their imperfections. Imperfections are what make characters relatable. And it's like this was all supposed to be the problem with network TV. Streaming was supposed to be the solution to this. We're not going to micromanage and enforce a bunch of arbitrary rules. We're just going to trust the showrunners to do the job.
A lot of we don't want people to go to Kansas. Then why did they include this in this scene? If they don't want this, why did they have an entire section with Sokka and Suki making out and then Grand walks in and peeps in? That's what I'm reading from this.
That we hired them to do. Yet somehow over the course of the past decade, we've just kind of reinvented cable. So, good job, everyone. I honestly wouldn't be surprised to learn that most of the issues with this version of Avatar are the result of meddling from people who should have just stayed the hell away, because there is potential here. Underneath all of the baffling decisions are the bones of what could have and could still be a much better series. For starters, I think they did a fantastic job with the casting. I imagine it's way harder to cast for live action than animated, because not only do they have to have the perfect voice, but they also need to look the part and be the right age, and in this case, be able to do martial arts. The fact that they're able to check so many boxes with these kids is impressive. I just hope that going forward, they get better material to work with. The only character they consistently write well for is Zuko. This guy's got it. He totally nails the intimidating on the outside, but a little sensitive on the inside. And between him, Iroh, Zhao...
Yeah, I remember people were writing that the Fire book was actually not that bad, man. The one where they talk about Prince Zuko. They fucked up a lot of shit, but that was one thing they did right.
Lieutenant Chi, I think almost all of the Fire Nation scenes were more cohesive and well written than anything that the rest of the cast was forced to do. Going back to my point that you can and should be able to make changes in an adaptation if they make sense, I thought a couple of the additions they made to Zuko's character worked perfectly. One, there's the reveal that the crew Zuko protected from being sacrificed in the meeting that led to his banishment is actually the same crew that he's been commanding for the past 3 years since then. So I thought that was a really cool way of tying everything together. It makes so much sense that I was actually surprised when I went back and rewatched season 1 of the animated series and realized they didn't do that originally. Also, like the scenes they added with him and Iroh, like the flashback to Iroh's son's funeral where we see Zuko give him his condolences as well as a gift to remember his son by. They have another moment like that at the end of this episode where Zuko is about to set off on his never-ending quest to find the Avatar and Iroh's like, hey, mind if I come along? And Zuko's pretty resistant to the idea, but then Iroh says this.
Everything I need is on this boat.
It's a very sweet moment.
And that was a good cast. That actually had a lot of spirit in it from actual Iroh from the cartoon. Yeah, I love Uncle Iroh, man. And it's like, just, man, I cried like a bitch when he died, man. I was so sad.
And especially with the little nod they do to Leaves from the Vine, a famously sad episode from season 2. But I do think it's worth pointing out that this only works for the people who have already seen the entire animated series. This only has the emotional weight that it does if you're going into this show with 30 hours of content. Keep in mind, this is episode 4 of the live action. If this is your first exposure to these characters, this moment is not going to have nearly the same significance to you. It's nice, but it feels a little premature. Netflix Avatar has an instant gratification problem where they don't want to set anything up that can be paid off later. They just want that payoff now. And I get that
because Netflix is made for consumers. That's the whole problem. Bro, that's the whole issue. These people just make stuff to consume for slop. There's no... It's the TikTok of like... what's it called? It's the TikTok of adaptations, man. Yeah. It's so... It actually makes perfect sense, man. Yeah.
That some of that was probably due to the uncertainty over whether they would even get a season 2 and 3. So they were trying to be as impactful as they can with this first season, but it's only going to make their job harder in the future. Like, where do you even go with some of these characters? There was one big change with Zuko that feels emblematic of the entire philosophy they approached this show with. There's an episode in season 1 of the cartoon called The Storm, where we see these juxtaposed flashbacks of Aang and Zuko's past, and we learn about the moments that sent them on the trajectories they're now on. For Aang, it's running away from home, and for Zuko, it's getting banished from home. He speaks out of turn in a war meeting and disrespects everyone in the room by saying they should come up with a better plan. Ozai does not appreciate this, and he tells Zuko that he's going to have to do an Agni Kai, aka a firebending duel. But when Zuko shows up, he is shocked to find out that it's not the general he's supposed to fight, it's his own dad. Zuko begs not to have to fight him. In fact, he outright refuses, but this only makes Ozai more angry. Zuko has now disrespected him twice, so he burns his face and tells him he cannot come back home until he finds the Avatar. The Netflix version plays out pretty similarly, but with one major difference. This time, Zuko fights back. Because why would we keep one of the most important moments of the show when we'd be missing out on an awesome fight scene? Look at all the fight.
That defeats the whole point of his character. Again, it's like they lack the IQ or the emotional IQ to understand that he didn't fight back, so he punished him for it. And to top it off, it shows that he's actually more understanding than his own freaking family, like his own father, and then his mom, who was fucked up because of his dad and died too, and how his sister's fucked up because of his dad mistreating them. Like, it's just such a bad thing to fucking change. It changes everything. It's like a freaking moth effect. Yo, okay, so thank you for the freaking raid. Thank you so much, man. Thank you. Hi, Raiders. We're just bitching about the Avatar live version from Netflix. How's it going? Yo, Army! David tier 3! Oh my god. Oh, Maple, thank you for the 7 months at tier 2. And Neo, thank you for the 8 months! Dennis, thank you for the tier 3 2 months. And Firemite, thank you for the sub, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Yeah, shout out to Kitsu. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great, fantastic rest of your day. However, so criticism they must be they didn't listen to anyone who told them what they got wrong with the original writers. It is a blessing to have the original writers. That's why I get so mad about Game of Thrones when they're like, yeah, House of Dragon starts deviating from, like, the idea of the story and just kind of goes off the rails. Yo, Arrow, thank you so much for the fucking 100 biddies. I remember when Netflix used to be good and actually cared about the IPs of movies, but let's say something early 2010, Netflix will always be goated. I genuinely think that as time goes on, corpos just like lose it. They lose their purpose, man. It's really sad. And that's why it hurts for me to like see like games or video game companies who used to be amazing essentially just turn into shit. It hurts.
Fire! Zuko refusing to fight his dad was the best way to show us who he is. How, unlike his father, he's not willing to hurt the people he loves. Netflix kind of respected that idea. I mean, Zuko does refuse to fight for a few seconds, and he does eventually get burned by his uncaring father. The problem is you can't justify Zuko getting banished forever because he lost a fight to the world's most powerful firebender. That wouldn't make any sense. So they had to add in another wrinkle to make sense of their first wrinkle, which is that Zuko actually could have won, he just chose not to. And that's where this scene completely loses me. Ozai is supposed to be the—
That is such a dumb thing to do. Why don't just keep the original in?
Ultimate threat. The world—
So they ultimately did do what they did, but then they didn't do it because they changed it and then they had to do that? Oh my god. My fucking head hurts.
most feared villain
Who
looming
approved
over
that?
every second of Aang's journey, and you're telling me some random 13-year-old kid could beat him in a fight? What are we doing here? I also just think it's better for Zuko's arc if he doesn't stand up to his dad yet, because then it will mean way more when he eventually does. What this decision showed to me is that the creators of knockoff Avatar will always choose flash over substance. If we have to fundamentally change to—
Because it keeps the people's attention when they're watching Netflix with a laptop on their belly and like chips in the other hand, and the other hand is flicking through TikTok. Yeah, so they'll leave them a good review because they actually got their attention for a second. The keys jingle harder, yeah.
Important characters so we can get 1 extra minute of pyrotechnics. You bet we're gonna be doing that. Because this is a show for grown-ups. Tell me again why the show made for grown-ups, Netflix's Game of Thrones, had to dumb down its writing. Every line of dialogue—
Yeah, dumbing down a children's show, by the way. Imagine. What does that say about you?
is so on the nose.
This was my home. And now it's gone.
They always choose the simplest way to convey a point.
But the one thing I do know is I'm the Avatar. And this is just the beginning.
Oh, I get it. Because he's the Avatar, and this is the end of episode 1. Compare these 2 lines that serve the same function, and tell me which of these shows is made for babies.
You will learn respect, and suffering will be your teacher.
Compassion is a sign of weakness.
Compassion is a sign of weakness.
Compassion. It was weakness.
The script feels like a first—
Nah, that hits so much harder, man. With Iroh looking away, he's like, oh, shit. I don't want to look at it.
First draft filled with a bunch of placeholders that just ended up holding that place forever. I think the moment that made me realize, oh, they truly don't give a shit about what they're doing here, is when they reused the same twist 3 times. So just like in the original, Zuko objects to the Fire Nation's plan to attack one place as a diversion so they can actually attack somewhere else. But then in the first episode, they added in this thing where the Fire Nation tricks the Earth Kingdom into thinking they're going to attack one place as a diversion so they could actually attack somewhere else. And then in the finale, it's revealed that the whole fight that just took place was, get this, a diversion so they could actually attack somewhere else. How is the rest of—
They just put in no effort, man. This is why I get so disappointed when I hear about Netflix adaptations. Everyone was so happy with the One Piece one. I'm like, well, they could have done a much better job, but you're just eating slop, so it's like... it was okay, but it could have been so much better. Like, this is like a little bit below okay, I would say, but still, I don't know, man.
The world not catching on by now? They only have one strategy.
The entire world
Diversion
will
chat.
turn their attention to the Earthbenders.
A masterful ruse, Your Highness.
With the enemy's firepower focused on that diversion, we can launch pinning attacks here.
A masterful ruse, Your Highness.
Why attack the North at all?
Wait, what? What? Wait, go back.
One strategy.
The entire world will turn their attention to the Earthbenders.
A masterful ruse, Your Highness.
With the enemy's firepower focused on that diversion, we can launch pinning attacks here.
A masterful ruse, Your Highness.
Why?
No. He's gotta be trolling. That's an edit, right? No way.
Attack the North at all?
Distraction. The North was never the true target. A masterful ruse, Your Highness.
Not only—
No, I think he's trolling. Chat, I think it's trolling with an edit. But still.
Is that such
Trolling.
lazy writing? But the last one doesn't even make sense. They attacked the Northern Water Tribe to distract them from Omashu, but both of those sieges happened over the course of one day. Even if they somehow knew it was happening because they got like an—
Just do it again, chat. Just do it again. Keep beating your head into the wall, and then one day they'll believe you.
email about it, they still couldn't have gotten there in time to help. And it's not like the Earth Kingdom was distracted from Omashu because they were busy helping the waterbenders. They weren't there. These two things have nothing to do with each other. This wasn't a diversion. You just did 2 attacks at the same time, and one of them worked and one of them didn't. Also, did they not say in episode 4 that they knew Omashu was going to be attacked?
Fire Nation forces are on the move. They'll be here by dawn.
Why write in that they knew it was gonna happen if you're gonna make them so unprepared for it?
You're under attack?
We will be, but we will be ready.
Is anyone in the writing room keeping track of things that they've said? I know some people
No.
are gonna watch this video and accuse me of just being a hater, but like, I didn't want to not like this show. Believe it or not, it's way more fun for me to like stuff than it is to not like stuff. I will root for success for this show and everyone involved. I got genuinely emotional watching the cast react to the news that they got picked up for 2 more seasons, and I didn't even like the first one. I'm just happy for them that they get to keep working on this. I think there's a lot of room to grow, and I'm happy.
He's just like the show, but he's emotional about the actors getting a 2nd season. Man, Drew is so nice. I mean, like, what? I mean, why are you still throwing money at them? No offense. I don't think the actors are actually bad. Genuinely. Just from watching all the sequences, it's not their fault. I've seen worse acting.
That they're being given the opportunity to try and do that. I hope
I just feel
that
bad,
the Netflix corporate overlords who push for all the changes that people are complaining about can listen to the criticism and realize that they're only making things worse by intervening.
They won't. They won't, chat.
I don't think they're going to do that, but I will choose to be blindly optimistic until proven otherwise. At the end of the day, I would rather this show exist than not at all. It didn't cost me $100 million to make. All I had to do was watch it. Avatar is one of my favorite shows of all time, and even if the best thing about this adaptation is that it's convinced people to go back and discover the original series for the first time, I'll take it. And if you are one of those people, welcome. Sorry I spoiled the first 20 episodes, but a lot more stuff happens after that. Season 2 is where everything goes up another level. They haven't even introduced Toph yet. They replaced Admiral Zhao with Azula, and that's a huge upgrade. It gets so fucking good, man. If you haven't seen it yet, just go watch it. What are you waiting for? For this video to end? It already did.
Nice transition. Nah, that was really good. It just reminded me of how bad the Netflix series was. What did it get on Rotten Tomatoes? Shit, clappies! Clap, 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 clap. Clap, 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 clap. Could be the most epic thing or biggest disaster. I don't know, man. I feel like they're just gonna girl boss her too. You know what? I don't know why. For those that don't know, Toph is blind. And she is constantly protected by her dad in the original show. And she's supposed to, like, finally break free from her family because they think that she's gonna die, but she's actually tough on the inside and knows how to fight. She ran away from home. I'm pretty sure they're just gonna make it so that she's just a girl boss. Yeah. They're not gonna give her character development where she kind of like has to learn to like stand up for herself and stand up to her family that tries to coddle her. Or unblind Toph. God, I hope not.